Good morning, everybody. Welcome.
Good morning.
Yes, I have my big mug again today because it was a really full weekend. So I need lots of caffeine in my tea this morning. Oh, we had a wonderful afternoon yesterday. Um, how many of us went caroling? 12?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Something like that. We went to 7 different houses. One was a friend of somebody from the patient circle, but the rest of them were members of our church. And what a delight it was to see them and how much they appreciate us spreading the light with them.
I found it interesting that when we asked them for their favorite hymn, none of them said anything about having a favorite. They liked them all. And I thought that was pretty special.
Yeah, I begin to chuckle when we got to Wayne and Ellie Bermel's. It was okay. We like them all. That was the standard response. So yeah, what a joy that is to be able to share Christmas carols with them, and of course they're all singing along.
And I think some of them would have liked it to last a little longer, but we had several places to go, and so we needed to be on track to get there. But I mean, we left them leaving wanting a little bit more.
Yes, and several of them said, "Oh, we've been waiting for you." And our last stop was at Sammy Wilson's, and the caregiver said that Sammy was really wanting to come to church, and that she was going to try to make arrangements for. She was going to find out if she was allowed to put Sammy in her car and bring her.
Well, the other thing about that stop was I've never seen such a huge smile and a face full of joy as I did in that person. She just made my day. She was the perfect last stop.
Yeah. Well, Sammy is a very, very long time member of the congregation, and she and her husband Bob were the visiting team for many, many, many years. And after Bob passed away, Sammy kept right on visiting those that were at home, those that were in the hospital. And she and Bob definitely were spreading the light.
They were lights in a dark world sometimes.
They were lights in a dark world. And how did you know that this is, where is my, aha. So John 8:12 spoke, when Jesus spoke to the people, he said, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." And from John 1:5, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome. And if we can just keep the light shining through us, darkness will not overcome.
We were talking yesterday in church. I mean, there was 3 R words. I can't remember all of them. One of them was restoration.
Reconciliation.
Reconciliation, but I can't remember the middle one. But the thing about it is, I think reflection should be in there too, because yesterday the reflected love we got back was so powerful and so meaningful, kept us moving forward to the next house. And I carried it home with me, like I said before. It's a wonderful thing to carry home and to light your life.
I had that. I had those words. I had all three of them. I thought, restoration, redemption,
Yes,
and reconciliation. Yes. Yeah. And yesterday, when Pastor Lydia was talking about just peace, is it an adverb or is it an adjective? Well, of course, I'm a go look up the definition quickly. But peace as an adverb is an action.
Good morning, Scott.
Good morning. And peace as an adjective is descriptive. So the action, a word or phrase that modifies or qualifies an adjective, verb, or other adverb, expressing relation of place, time, circumstances, manner, or cause. So as an action, we spread peace. We share peace, the peace of God, with others. And as a descriptive word, a word or phrase naming an attribute added to or grammatically related to a noun to modify or describe it. And that brings me to another scripture. I'm throwing these out really quick. John 14:27, peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid. The light that the darkness cannot extinguish. And yesterday watching the faces, just like we've said, watching their faces was absolutely amazing.
That kind of leans into my talk about Hanukkah this morning, and I did some research on it. And I subscribed to a Jewish site on my email. It's called My Jewish Learning. And there was like a homily or a sermon by Rabbi Eric Woodward on that site. And it talked about we need a do-over for the last 2 months, speaking that, for about October 7th. Hanukkah is made for the moment. And I thought that was really important. Hanukkah, which means dedication, and refers to a dedication of the temple that traditionally happens at Sukkot, is the holiday of do-overs. And I'm thankful that even in the Christian tradition that has been carried down, God gives us an opportunity for many do-overs. And I'm grateful for that, because I tend to screw things up the first time, but then the second time I might get a little closer, and the third time I might even come closer. So you can't give up. You can be a work in progress. And he goes on to say, and as we start Hanukkah, or in our case, begin Advent, I want to suggest some ways that we can experience this holiday as a bit of a do-over. First, we can allow ourselves to detach from the news in one way or another. Maybe deleting Twitter from our phone. Maybe turning off the TV. Maybe using your phone settings to limit the amount of time it lets you spend on a given app. Second, we can allow ourselves to feel joy. We need to feel joy. We need to feel a sense of celebration. It's not a betrayal of the memory or of what is going on. It's actually a way of connecting, a way of saying, We Jews, we Christians feel joy even at a time of stress. We bring light even in a time of darkness. Third, we can be proud and not afraid. The core mitzvah, and I'll cover the meaning of that word, of Hanukkah is lighting a menorah in front of one's house so that you can publicize the miracle. So put a menorah in your front window and proudly express your Judaism. We do it in other ways, like a manger scene or a star or a candle. There are many ways we proudly expressed our Christianity. Don't be deterred by Jewish hatred to cower. Hanukkah represents precisely the creation of a space to bring light, despite the many fears and challenges around doing so. Celebrate it proudly. And mitzvah is a word meaning commandment. And so the above is our barometer for God's good deeds. Success is if we're engaged enough to share, and if we are empowered enough to lead. We are a society in which the sharing of God's commandment to love one another knows no bounds.
Mm-hmm.
So, mitzvah, it's a powerful word. It's God's command to do good in the world, be a light in the world. And so I found that Hanukkah really mirrors our season of Advent in many ways.
And Hanukkah runs December the 7th through December the 15th. And they have specific traditions. Like during Hanukkah, they can't eat pork and shellfish. They cannot mix meat and dairy in the same meal, which means if you have chicken on the table, there won't be any dairy. There won't be any butter.
Has anybody ever had latkes?
Oh, yes.
That's a traditional Jewish meal. And I'm telling you, they're worth exploring.
Oh, yes. They're wonderful. An interesting fact about the menorah, the candle, Abra, in 1951, the Prime Minister of Israel, David Ben-Gurion, presented a menorah to President Harry Truman, who we all know and love right here in Independence. President Truman was the first president to celebrate Hanukkah at the White House. Oh, that was an interesting little piece of information I pulled out. And what you've said, Christmas is a central holiday for Christians, and religiously we celebrate the birth of Jesus. Hanukkah is a minor holiday for the Jewish religion. It is a holiday filled with joy and spread over the 8-day period. There are a lot of similarities with the light, the Christmas decorations that we use, all different kinds of lights, and they have the white lights. And there are 8 nights when they light each candle on the menorah is called the Festival of Lights, and that's to chase away the darkness with the light. And with God, with Jesus in us, we are the light, and that darkness will not overcome. That to me, that's just powerful. We can stop the darkness. We just have to keep sharing and sharing.
And in the Old Testament, we never quite got it right as believers. The Jewish people, kept struggling to find their way. And in the end, God said, okay, I'm going to help you out. I'm sending Jesus and to explain everything, to show you how to live, to be a light and that way you can emulate or model that light in the world. And so I think that God is extremely patient with us, and he gives us second chances,
And third,
do-overs.
lots of do-overs.
So that's why Christmas doesn't have to be perfect at your house. It really doesn't. It just has to, the perfection is in love. It's not about how many gifts are under the tree or what a wonderful meal you've spent hours preparing, or how clean your house is, or how any of those things are. It's not about that. It's about the welcome. It's about the chance to love someone. And if we don't get it right the first time, we have to keep trying.
And the peace that we feel from that love, not just peace for us, but peace for all of those that are around us. And in Sunday school yesterday, we were talking about peace as well. Do we only have peace? Or do we know the Prince of Peace? And that to me, that's where it's at. Do we really know the Prince of Peace? And he's the one that gives us the restoration, the redemption, and reconciliation.
And the chance for a do-over.
And the chance for the do-overs. Or the redo. It has to be an R.
I have a story to share this morning. It's about grandchildren, and those of us who have the grandchildren. Grandchildren aren't looking for perfection. And my good friend Joanne, she had an opportunity to experience, being that love and that warm place and that safe place for her granddaughter. Her granddaughter called her up and said, "Grandma, I want to go to lunch with you." And so, of course, being a grandma, we always say yes. And so, or we try to say yes all the time. And when I checked in with her yesterday evening to see how it had gone, and she said it was so wonderful to spend that time with her granddaughter. And I find that to be true also. I mean, I went down to visit my grandchildren on Saturday, and my middle grandchild, she came and sat down with me. And she goes, "Nana, I just never have anybody else but you that sit down and talk about music with, because everyone else doesn't understand." And so she sat down and we went over her clarinet music, and we talked about that and how practicing makes a difference. And I just hope, in my memory, the warm memories of my grandmother, I want to pass that on to my grandchildren. And we get lots of chances to do over, because we may not get that perfection the first time. But there comes that time where you hear them say, "Nana, let's go to lunch. Nana, no one understands me like you. Nana," there's just those moments that you can't, that every chance you took to try and to do over made a difference in that child's life. And I hope they carry warm memories of us as we go forward, and they still live.
I know they do. But yes, what a blessing it is to be able to spend time with the grandchildren. It's a very special bond, and I think how special that bond is. How does God feel when we come to him and say, "Can we just sit down this morning with a cup of coffee and have a chat?"
There's being alone, and then there's being alone. And sometimes we need that alone time to find God. We're never really alone, but that peace that he gives us when we have those moments with our coffee cup, no TV, no phone, no iPad. We just meet him, and he meets us where we are.
Isn't it interesting that he finds us where we are? Sometimes when we don't even know where we are.
Well, he knows, and that's all that matters. And he brings us that which we need in that moment. But we have to be tuned in, I guess. Our radar has to be a little more refined so that we can meet him and he can find us and we can find him.
Well, and sometimes when we're least expecting, or we certainly aren't looking, and it's, well, that's a God moment for sure. You look out, you see a beautiful sunrise. I mean, those are some of the things that stop me in my tracks. And
as we were driving around yesterday, and I thank you for doing the driving, but I sat as we drove through some of the neighborhoods. There were leaves blowing, and among the leaves there were squirrels chasing, and then the birds were diving down. And it was like, those are things that normally I wouldn't notice, but thanks to you driving, I had a chance to just look out the window and appreciate all of that wonder.
Yeah, there's so much. The blessings that we don't even think about, the blessings that we take for granted. And God just keeps on giving. We don't say thank you. We don't appreciate all those wonderful daily blessings that we have.
And as we visited the houses, several of them had caregivers within that home. And I think we need to especially remember those who are being caregivers this season. It's a huge task. It's a huge responsibility. And I think that we brought even the caregivers a little bit of light in those moments when we were there. But as you are at home with someone you're caring for, it's a lot. And sometimes it shuts us off from everything else because we're overwhelmed with that responsibility.
It is. It is a big responsibility. I have been a caregiver, golly, since full time since 2009, and I don't have any clients right now.
But you're still a caregiver at home.
I am at home. Mm-hmm. And even, once you have that instinct of helping people, it's like at the grocery store or any place that I go, it's like I see people and like, oh, do I need to go quick so I get them off that curb, or should I have grabbed that basket so she didn't have to go clear back across the parking lot? And that one I tried. I hurried. She was too fast for me. She really didn't need me to come and make sure she was okay.
Well, and the other thing we forget about is it's not caring just for others, although that's huge and needed desperately. But I think we don't care for ourselves sometimes. And that is a huge thing. If we don't care for ourselves, our well is dry and we have trouble and struggle to care for others. So those peaceful moments where we sit down with our cup of coffee and turn everything else off and tune into God rather than the TV, those are the important memories, important things we can do to fuel ourselves and get us to the next day.
And if we don't take care of our own emotional well-being, I'm not going to say we can't. It's almost impossible to support the emotional well-being and needs of another person. And that is a really big factor in caregiving on a regular basis.
Well, and it's not just sitting down for the peaceful moments of prayer, although that's vitally important. It's little things like rewarding yourself with a bubble bath, or giving yourself a little extra time with a special tea and a piece of chocolate. or whatever it is you enjoy doing that time, and whatever causes you to have peace. You need to find those moments and give them to yourself.
That is very true. And we have a very good scripture, the Hebrews 10. And Debbie, I really like your version. And after I read that, I went to my Bible and I said, oh my gosh, I want to share this one too. So you want to share?
Yes.
Share the one that you found first?
The Message translation of the Bible. Hebrews 10:23 through 25. So let's do it. Full of belief, confident that we are presentable inside and out. Let's keep a firm grip on the promises that keep us going. He always keeps his word. Let's see how inventive we can be in encouraging love and helping out, not avoiding worshiping together as some do, but spurring each other on, especially as we see the big day approaching.
Okay, and mine is from the Application Study Bible. Without wavering, let us hold tightly to the hope we say we have, for God can be trusted to keep his promise. Think of ways to encourage each other to outburst of love and good deeds. And let us not neglect our meeting together, as some people do, but encourage and warn each other, especially now that the day of his coming back again is drawing near. And it's interesting from the Bible study that I did with this particular scripture. They asked us to circle let us, and in this section there are, well, going back up to verse 22 also, let us go right into the presence of God with true hearts, fully trusting him. But let us 3 times. God's commanding us to take the message.
Let's keep a firm grip. Let's see how inventive we can be. I mean, yes. Let's do it is a command at the beginning of the Message translation. So it's a group project, but it can also be you and God. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
With God's help, all things are possible.
And yesterday I was brought to tears when I saw Joanne Cooley walk in. Such a special time. I couldn't wait to get to out of Sunday school to go visit with her. I learned from her that beautiful chief scarf she had on yesterday, that she had knitted that, and she knits a lot. And I said to her, we have somebody else. We have several somebodies in the church that are interested in reestablishing on the prayer shawl ministry, or just the Knitwits, I think is what they were called, lovingly called, knitting scarves and hats for the community breakfast, or for those that just want them. She said she had knitted a lot of scarves, and actually they had a little craft fair out there at Eastland Court Apartments, and she sold them, and she said she was just amazed at how many people wanted what she had done. So that could be a wonderful outreach ministry for church, and bringing people together for a common cause of sharing the love and sharing the light.
Well, and it's a knitting and sewing, and some of those things are solitary most of the time. And I know my friend gets a lot of joy out of her quilting, but it's a solitary thing. And I think she prays and she thinks about things and, walks with God as she makes her love offerings. She makes quilts for her family. And so I think that it would be meaningful for a lot of people to be able to sit down and in community do those things.
Yes. And join us on Sunday to celebrate joy. Our service starts at 10:15. And because it is joy and the color for joy is pink, we encourage you to wear pink this coming Sunday if you have pink to wear. Yesterday, we had lots and lots of blue and purple, and it was wonderful. We had so many people participate. So spread the love this week. Focus on joy, not only for yourself, but the joy that we bring to others. And our time is up again. This 30 minutes goes so fast. Have a wonderful week, everybody.
Good morning and goodbye. We'll see you next week.